Hey, I am Stacy with New Creations by Stacy. I'm the owner and artist. So if you guys are jumping on today, happy Monday. Just say hey and where you're watching from. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the video, make sure I can get the comments, make sure I'm live. All right, perfect. So, fantastic. I see the video up here. We should have Dixie as well on with us tonight to help answer any questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. So in the description, I do have all of my information where you can find me on Facebook. If you please like and follow me. I also have the link if you need to find your local retailer, as well as my affiliate link. And then, so hey, I see some people jumping on now. But I do have the affiliate link, so you can purchase online there, or like I said, find your local retailer. And then I also have a full product list. So if you don't know what we're using, you can just click on that description and it'll give you all the products we're going to be doing tonight. So we are going to do a raised stencil, and then we're also going to be doing some decoupaging with the Distress Damask, one of the new decoupage papers, which I love because I love the damask anyway. It's one of my favorite patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and spin you guys around so we can get started. Oh, hey, from Australia, good morning. All right, so I can see the comments down here too now, so that's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and spin this around. So last week we did do a raised stencil, and we did it with the Moonshine Metallics and Sea Spray. But tonight we're actually going to be using Dixie Mud, which is a little bit different. You can tint it for a color, but in this case I'm going to be putting it right on here before the paint, and we'll be painting over it. So I've got the other side done, so we'll be painting over that side. That way you can see the whole process start to finish. It's a little bit different for each piece depending on what you're going for as well. But so with this piece, just to talk about how I got to this point, I did go ahead and clean it with White Lightning, and it's a TSP based solution. It's going to degloss your piece, get any grease, grime. You guys are kind of quiet tonight. But it'll get any grease, grime, anything like that off your piece, anything that will affect the integrity of your paint sticking to your piece. So really important to clean it well. And then after that, this piece is a bleeder. It's antique. Well, I don't know exactly the age, but I'd say it's at least 80 to 90 years old, probably. Dark wood, so it's definitely a bleeder. And I did use silk on it, which has a built-in stain blocker to block those tannins from coming through. But because it was such a heavy bleeder, I could tell when I cleaned it, it was just dark all over my rag, even after I had rinsed it and used the White Lightning. So I knew it was going to be a heavy bleeder, so I did go ahead and use one coat of Boss in White to help take care of that. And then, of course, it's got two coats of Endless Shore and Silk on it right here. Nothing here yet, but right here. So that also has that built-in stain blocker with it to take care of any other bleed through. So, oh, hey, Dixie Belle's on with us now. So let's see here. Oh, hey, Wanda, it's so good to see you. And we've got Kaya from West Virginia. Oh, I love that name. That's so pretty, Kaya. Hopefully I pronounced it right. But all right, so we've got our side here, and we're going to be using the original damask stencil. So mine is very heavily used. And I've actually, on a live, probably when this first came out, I had cut out a piece, but I've since taped it back in. But I did cut out on the sides because when I do a raised stencil, I like it to lay flat. I don't want it to be bubbled and depend on me holding it down or having to bend the Mylar. having to bend. It just doesn't give you as clean of a stencil, which in this case, that's okay because we're using a distressed damask decoupage paper. So it's okay if this one looks a little bit distressed. So we're gonna go ahead and start just by placing it on here. And you know, when you have furniture, especially old furniture, a lot of times it's not exactly the same on both sides, the measurements. A lot of this was done by hand, so the cuts aren't exact. Oh, perfect. All right, so we are gonna start here, and just to let you guys, I don't know, I just think this is interesting. I do a lot of furniture since you're at the right angle. This piece is really old. I have never ever seen dovetailing like this. Hopefully you can see it, but it's little circles instead of these squares. But it is definitely machine made, so this isn't too old. And Big Mama's butter too. I will definitely be using that old furniture. Make your drawers slide well, all that good stuff. That was just kind of a side note. But so we're gonna go ahead and get this positioned. And it is a little, let me bring this around. I'm gonna bring you guys in closer too. I'm gonna get it taped up at least here. I just wanna make sure that I've got it, yeah. I can get it fairly flat, but this side is a little bit different. So let me go ahead and get this taped up. I know last week we used the, oh, you can't see it, it's actually taped to my wall, but the new damask stencil, I love that one too. Like I said, anyway, I'm a huge damask fan. So I'm gonna use tape to tape this up. You do have spray adhesive that you can use to help this stick, but I'm not a huge fan of that spray adhesive. I don't like how that's bubbling on that side, but I'll only have to deal with it there, so that's not a big issue. I think I can get the rest of this to lay flat. Otherwise, I could trim a little bit more off over here, but I think I'm fine with where I'm at here. Oh, hey, Gina from Georgia. Oh, yeah, me too on the damask stencil. So what's everybody's favorite stencil? I don't know why I asked that, because I think sometimes, well, the damask I always come back to, but for a while there I was into more of the modern mid-century patterns, like the Greek key, and a few of those, and now I'm back to the damask. I always come back to this one though. So I want this taped on really well because I don't want it to move around a lot. Actually, I think I'm gonna go ahead and trim that little spot up here. I just don't like how it's bubbling. I'm just gonna cut it in, not measuring or anything like that. I just want it to, well, if I can catch this little edge here. There we go. So now it's sitting in there flat, and I've got it straight. And I like that because when you're doing the raised stencil, I don't want to get a lot underneath of the stencil. So I don't want it to be moving around much. I want it to have a nice flat surface to lay on. And I will say a raised stencil, it's easier if you could lay it down, but you know, it's just not, I mean, I could lay this flat, but it's just not too feasible. Oh, hey, Catherine from Tulsa. All right, so I think what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of taping where I cut that off on my edges. I don't want to have to worry about it going over where I'm going off the stencil. So just tape this side down. So perfect. All right, so we are going to be using Dixie mud, like I said. And Dixie mud comes in 3 different colors. It's white, brown, and black. So you can kind of see it here. you do want to, you can do a lot of things with this. Repairs, I've actually repaired a corner over here. You can do raised stenciling with it. Fill your hardware holes and stuff like that if you're changing out hardware. So I go through this a lot. So I've got a little bit left in this container and a little bit in here. So I'm going to kind of combine them. And the Dixie mud, you want to store it in the refrigerator. And you also want to stir it. If you can, stir it once a week. Frankly, I found this in my garage. Must have been the leftover from something else. So I don't want to waste any. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to add it to my current one. Oh yeah, you know, I'm into the raised stencils right now. Gina said she was glad about the raised stencil. She's been wanting to do one. I've been doing them, I don't know, on the last probably several pieces of furniture I've done. I get in this thing where I'm kind of addicted to something and then I just keep going with it until I move on to something else. All right, so your Dixie mud, you want to keep it stirred up. Should be nice and creamy. If you store it in the fridge, it's going to be this way. Sometimes when it settles, if you don't stir it regularly, you'll get kind of like sour cream. You get like the little water on top. Just stir that back in. It's fine. You don't want it to let it dry out too much though. All right, so we should have just enough to do this stencil. Hey, Pam. Hey, Jerry. All right, so I generally use this little tool that comes in the silkscreen stencils, but we do have a thingamajig. Oh, I can't even say it. A thingamajig tool that you can use as well. But I like these to spread out the Dixie mud just because it creates a nice, you don't have a lot of peaks, and you'll see that when we get to the other side. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I want to do this kind of quick. It took a little more time starting than I meant to, but I definitely want to get to the decoupage. So we're just going to start putting this on and smoothing this out. So my stencil's kind of old, and I've got some more detailed areas. I'm going to bring you guys in so you can see better. Let's see here. Yep, that way you've got a full view. All right, so what I'm doing too, normally I just scoop this out, but I'm to the bottom of my barrel here, or my jar. So I'm just scooping out with that. But I've got some detailed areas that are a little damaged from me washing this stencil. I'm just being careful in those spots to go down as I'm dragging this Dixie mud across. So that way I don't get a really big smudged area on those damaged parts. As long as I'm going with the normal flow of the stencil, it'll still lay down and it'll be fine. So we're just putting some more on here. I'm holding it down so it's nice and flush against the side.
I don't know what you mean by.
Whoops. Siri thinks I'm wanting her to do something here. All right. So I probably use white the most, but if I was doing this in black, I would definitely be using one of the darker Dixie muds. And you can also tint this too. So if I wanted to, let's say I didn't decide that I want to do this raised stencil until I had already painted it. I could actually tint my Dixie mud so that I could just go over that paint with the Dixie mud. So that was a damaged area. I'm just going to keep going in that direction to where it lays down, so I'll still have that definition in that section. So this is the area where I've kind of cut off. So I'm just going to kind of push up to the side and then go down here again. Mainly I just want to get all this on, and I'm hoping I have enough to do this whole section. You just want to make sure that you're filling in all of the stencil here. And this just takes a little bit of time. It's not too long. And actually, I could go a little bit faster too if I go ahead and use the side of this. I'm trying to conserve it as much as possible. So I can also go down on this long edge. Just going to scoop some of this up. So one thing about the Dixie mud too, you do not want to... Sorry, I lost the comments. I'm pulling those back up. But with the Dixie mud, you do not want to put this down your drain. So when you're using a stencil like this, sometimes, well, in the winter time, in the summer, I just go outside and hose it off. But it's a little bit more difficult to clean up here. I usually try to put it in a pan and just spray it down with water. The mud comes off of it fairly easily. And I'm not the best about cleaning my stencils, but see how fast it's going whenever I use that long side? Once I get going, that's perfect. So I'm just dipping some more Dixie mud out here. I'm just going to run it along. And we're just going to get these little ones down here. Just this bottom section. So down here, I don't have it laying down as well, but that's okay because it's going to squeeze this in just a little bit. So I've got a few sections I missed up here. We just got to get these. And I think I'm just going to have just enough mud left. Just going to spread this out. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to lay that flat again. And just bring this down. So because I'm getting to the bottom, I need a little bit more control. Well, let's go ahead and get this section over here. So I'm going to switch back around to the small side. Let's see here. Ooh. I think I'm just going to have enough. I was a little worried I was going to run out. So here we go. We've got the small side. And this is also the one I cut. So I'm being a little more careful towards the edge. Because I don't want this to bend up too much. I'm just going to kind of hold that spot down. And same thing right here. Get that as close to the edge as I can. And let's go ahead and I don't want to waste any, so I'm just going to scoop that up to the top. And Make sure I just get all the little pockets filled in here. So let me just make sure I have everything filled in. I'm missing a little bit down here. A little bit down here. It's easy when you get to the bottom to miss some spots because you're trying to be more careful to not go off that edge of your stencil. I think I've got everything for the most part now. So I'm going to wipe off my scraper here. And we are going to, I don't know, I keep losing the video here. Hopefully, there we go. All right. Oh, hey, Amber. It's been a while. Well, thank you, Amber, too, this morning. She let me know that my event wasn't showing for today. So thank you for that. All I'm going to do now is just go ahead and try to smooth this out. It's not going to be perfectly smooth. And we'll see that when we get to the other side. I'm just going to kind of go down, get it as smooth as I can. And as I'm going, I'm also watching just to make sure that I have everything filled in. And inevitably, I may miss a spot, but this usually will make that a little less. So you can see how much I scraped off. I started with nothing on here, and I ended up scraping all of this back. So yeah, you can. I'm big on that too. I cut up all kinds of stuff. Yeah, you can definitely cut the scraper. I have not had to yet, but I do that a lot with like the sponges and stuff like that when I'm stenciling. So for this, you don't wash this in the sink. All I'm going to do to clean off my scraper is, I'm not going to clean all this while I'm here, but I do want to clean off my scraper. And I usually just wipe it down with the baby wipe. And it's not perfect, but as long as I kind of wipe it off initially, I can come back later, even after it dries, and just kind of scrape it off. But as far as my stencil goes, we're going to go ahead and take this off now. And when you pull it off, you want to try to kind of come off as much as you can straight, just so you don't smudge anything or completely knock it out of the way. So I'm just getting this tape off so I can, there we go. So we're just going to try to pull it off and not let it go back down. We don't want it to touch anything, but that's it. So this is the raised stencil. We're going to end up painting over that. So what I'm going to do, since I'm not ready to clean this off right now, I'm just going to go ahead and mist down. I want to just make sure it's nice and wet. I want to mist down my stencil so that way once I get off the live, I can clean all this excess off. So when I'm doing a raised stencil, I never go back to back wet. So I'm not going to put over the stencil back over this wet. I'm going to actually wait until this section dries, and then I'm going to go back and do the bottom section. So over here, and I'm going to try to do this part quickly because my focus really isn't on painting, but I want you to kind of see what happens after your raised stencil dries and, you know, what you may want to do with it. Let me go ahead and get my lid on here, make sure we have enough time. Oh, thanks, Amber. Yeah, you know, I used to use the putty knife until I tried that little tool, and I like the tool better. But I think all of that is completely a personal preference as far as, you know, it's really a personal preference. even painting. I think we all do it so differently, and it's just what I think each one of us feels most comfortable with sometimes. But so this piece here, this is dried, and I haven't really done much to it. It still has some of the ridges and the peaks. You can see here where it's a little bit smudged, but that's okay because, like I said, I'm using the Distress. All I'm doing here is I want to knock off some of those excessive pieces. So I'm using a super fine piece, which I think is equivalent to like a 400 to a 600 grit sandpaper. But super fine Surf Prep sanding pad. And this is just, I'm going over this so lightly, except for in that one spot. I'm going over this so lightly. It is just to knock off the peaks. So once that's done, so now here's where some of the different things come in. I'm going to take off the dust with some cheesecloth here. Usually I use a tack cloth, but I used it on this piece already, and it is not lost all its tackiness. All right, so just get that dust off. So with the Dixie mud, if I was going to do a blend on here with the chalk mineral paint, I would want to protect over this and create a barrier so that moisture when you're spraying with your mister bottle doesn't cause this to kind of run, or you get little grainy things. You start moving it around because it is affected by the water. So normally I would protect at this point, but in this case, I know I really love the Dixie mud for the raised stencil. It's really my first choice, but depending on what I'm doing, I use the sea spray too. But anything like this, first choice is the Dixie mud for me. So I'm using, I just want to show you guys this. I'm using Silk. So Silk has a built-in primer, a blocking primer. It's got the paint, and it also has a clear coat in it. You don't use a mister with it, so I can paint with Silk right over this without causing it to come undone, I guess would be the best way to put it. This is not what I would do, though, if I was using CMP. So I've got Endless Shore and Silk. We're just going to go ahead and, by the way, when you do a raised stencil, so if you love blends but you're not too practiced or you don't feel comfortable doing them, then it's easy to blend. It's easier to blend over a raised stencil, I think. But I'm just going to do a little section here because I do want to get to the decoupage paper. I'm just making sure that I get good coverage here. It's my first coat. But because this does not have as much water with it, you can easily paint right over that raised stencil. So it's going to be really nice and subtle. I'll need 2 coats of Silk. Let me do just a little bit more. I'll need 2 coats of Silk. And I'm going in different directions because I want to get that good coverage. Because it's got texture now, I just need to get in all those little spots. So sometimes I do the raised stencil at this point. There's really not a right or a wrong answer. I could do the raised stencil later after my first coat of paint. It's, it doesn't matter. I am going to get into all the grooves on this coat though, so it won't, my second coat, I'll just be able to go over it. Let me get this top section here. I've still got to do the bottom on this side, so I'm not going all the way down. I just wanted you to see that if you're using Silk, you can go right over it and not have to worry about protecting it. So when you use Dixie mud, like to fill the hardware holes and I'm painting with CMP, I always go over those little spots because that extra water, let me get rid of the rest of this paint. That extra water will cause you to lose some of that definition with the Dixie mud. It'll pull out where your holes are. But that's one reason why I do like doing the silk over this. It has a built-in protectant, so it's also creating its own barrier here. So normally with silk too, you want to go in one direction, but I'm working very quickly to fill in these grooves. And then I'm going back over it in one direction so that it still doesn't cause me to have a lot of odd brush strokes. So I'll just bring it down to here. I'm going to end up doing a second coat, and I'll bring you guys in so you can see a little bit closer. And then you CMP, what would you seal it with? So, I mean, my favorite sealer is gator hide, but satin works. Since we've been out of gator hide, I've been using satin. But really, any of those things, you just want to give it time to get nice and dry so it doesn't reactivate too much whenever you're spraying it with all that water. So that's really the most important thing. So you guys, let me kind of twist this around a little bit. Can you kind of see? It's really kind of subtle, but you can see the raised stencil behind here. When this is all said and done, I'm actually going to be doing some brown glaze. I'm going to try to do a live on my page this week. I'm going to do a brown glaze and a black wax over. Just gives it a lot of depth, and it'll age it out too. This is an old piece. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead. We're working on these drawers, and I'm going to end up dropping you down for this. You won't really see me. And I've got some drawers at multiple steps. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to run through them. If I miss any questions or anything, you guys, I'll go back after the live though and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this drawer out. I mean, I could decoupage with it up here, but honestly, it's just easier when it's a flat surface. So actually, let me go ahead and I'm going to drop you straight down. Don't pay attention to my mess here. And by the way, this piece back here, we're going to be working on painting that next week, next Monday. So let's see here. Get you down so you can see this drawer well. Okay, so we've got this drawer. I've got one, by the way, that is dry, and I've got it done so you can see how to sand it and all that good stuff. I'm actually running this damask side to side, and I just want to make sure that I've got the right things going in the right directions for the first drawer that I put on. So actually, I've got it backwards here. So there we go. So I've sort of cut this piece. The stencil or the decoupage papers come in one kind of long piece. It's much wider than this, but I've already cut it up. And so what I didn't cut out a perfect match size-wise to the drawer, but I did want to work with something manageable that I could lay well. I'm not too worried about wrinkles because it's a distressed damask, but I wanted to make it manageable in order to lay it. So, like I said, I do like gator hide for this. Gator hide is just like glue, I feel like. But satin works too, so that's definitely what we're going to be using here. Just want to shake it up really well. Yes, Amber, it is. This is my favorite new paper too, although I like several of them. So I feel like whatever I'm working with sometimes is my favorite. All right, so we're just gonna put, I like to go heavy with the protectant. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. I'm gonna set this kind of off to the side a little bit. There's a couple different methods to working with the decoupage paper, but I don't like to iron my clothes, so I pretty much don't want to press my decoupage paper either. So I'm using the Scarlet brush. I've got quite a bit on here, and I am just putting, I want it thick. I want it to be like glue. That's just me. You want to make sure you have nice, good, thick coverage. And I'm going to stop right there for a minute because I'm going to go ahead and start laying my paper. I'm great at laying things backwards in all kinds of different ways. So I'm going to make sure that I have this one in the right spot. And I've got this edge on here. Normally I like to line it up right to the edge. I don't like to, I like to cut that off, but in this case I didn't. So I'm having a harder time than usual getting this straight. But I think, so I'll have a wrinkle there. So I'm just getting this all pressed down. Like I said, this is distressed, so I'm not too worried about wrinkles. But I am going to go ahead and try to push out as many as I can. What you don't want is bubbles. I feel like I'm laying this crooked, and I've got so much extra. There's no reason for that. But I can't move it now, so we're going on. Well, I could move it, but I'm not. It's not that serious because I'll be distressing a lot of the top of that to begin with. So I've got it laid really about to the point that I've stopped. And since I've got that started really well, I'm going to go ahead and slather some more of this satin on here, making sure that you get really good coverage, because if you miss a spot here, that paper is not going to stick. And now to me, that's where, if you have to, if you end up getting those bubbles, one way to fix it, or those areas that aren't stuck, is to, once this clear coat dries, you can actually reactivate it with heat by pressing it. So that's kind of how you would fix it. Hopefully we don't have to get to that point. Just making sure that I'm not getting any bubbles in here, that I'm laying it slowly. And see, there we go. I'm gonna have a wrinkle. It's gonna be unavoidable here, and that's because I didn't lay that straight, super straight. So I'm going to try to make it very small. Again, as long as they stick and there's no bubbles, I don't care. I can also pop a bubble, but go ahead and I'm going to work my way up here. Kind of reminds me of laying a transfer in a lot of ways. So just want to make sure that, there we go. So I'm going to make sure it's laid out nicely, that it's all nice, stuck down, and it is. I actually did not wrinkle like I thought I was going to. So like when you see these light areas, it's distressed. So this paper is really the perfect one to practice with, because it's almost like you have built-in wrinkles. Oh, thanks, Wanda. All right, perfect. So now, once I've got this laid, I'm going to go ahead and, again, very generously, I'm going to go over this, and I'm going to watch for any bubbles that appear, any additional wrinkles. anything like that. But that's one reason this Scarlet brush is so great, because the way the bristles are, you can apply quite a bit of pressure here. And really that actually helps lay the paper some. So I'm just going over it, making sure that everything is stuck down nicely. And again, very generous. This isn't how I protect my piece. I don't use this much protectant at all on a coat. But this is definitely how I use it for decoupage specifically. All right, perfect. So it looks like I want to get around these edges good. We're going to sand those off though here in just a second. So it looks good. Just making sure everything is covered. And that's it. So now I'm going to set this off to the side to dry. And I've got one already dried here. So we're going to move this off to the side. And we're going to go ahead and bring this piece in. So, some decoupage paper sands easier than others or cuts easier than others. So this piece is fully dried. I only have a few more minutes here. But this piece is fully dried. And so now I'm going to go ahead and start to sand it. I did part of it already. Start to sand it off. And I'm using my Surf Prep medium sandpaper, and I want to say, kind of feels like about a 120. The 220 is the sanding pad. It's a little more grittier than that, so I'm sure this was probably a 120. So now, I had lined up the rest of this, so I've got a little overlap back here. Just going to sand it down. You can see how it's kind of splintering off. I like to sand it in one direction. Sometimes if you go back and forth like I did, that's good to really get it start to cut, but you lose a little of the control. So you might get it a little bit more distressed than you intended to. So for this top part, obviously I didn't feel like cutting that out. It was too much. But so that I can get in here good with the sandpaper, I can get a fold. I'm going to go ahead and make a little cut. Because I want to kind of create a crease. And I'm going to actually use my fingernail. I do in some cases, depending on the paper I'm using, use an X-Acto knife. I have one out just in case I needed to. This is actually my first time using this particular design with the new papers. So I've got a nice little burnish going on. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my sandpaper and just go over this. So it's coming off in a few spots. Just go ahead. You can see where it's coming undone. I'm going to go ahead and... So on the spots where it's a little bit rough, you can go ahead and tear it down. Just sand it a little bit. And that'll fall right away. So it does get a little gritty because of the way the paper is. It's not that fine sand like you would have with paint. And then we've got this. Let me just get that one little corner piece off. Yep, there we go. So that's it. So you don't have to cut it to size. You can see it just sands down really easy to get that break. Just gonna go ahead. You just want to make sure that it's good and dry. If it's not, this is a different process entirely. All right, perfect. So that's it. I'm just getting all the grit off of this. But that's it. It's on here. I can paint over this. I'm going to actually end up waxing and antiquing this. But you can paint over it. I could sand it down if I wanted to distress it. I'm going to go ahead and stick it in so you guys can see what it looks like. And like I said, I believe on Friday I have a live scheduled, and we will actually go through and do some glazing and waxing on here. That'll give me time to just get it painted and all done. So this is what, whoops, let me go ahead and pop you guys up so you can actually see it. Oh, whoa, you don't want to see that. Well, let's do this. That was the closet. It was terrible. So give me just a minute. Let me go ahead and get you guys back so you can kind of see how it flows together. And I am not going to be able to see the camera here because I have you guys backwards. I couldn't flip it back around without disconnecting. So we have it all set. You'll be able to see final pictures as well on my page. And then also, if you like and follow my page, you'll be alerted for the next live on this particular piece. But I will go ahead and finish all these steps. We'll do a Van Dyke Brown glaze and then a Best-Dang wax in black to really give it a lot of dimension since we went with one flat color. I did actually do a little blend in here with Serenity, but I did not care for that. But thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Again, please share the video. Thank you, Dixie for helping answer any questions. You guys take care. Have a great night. Thank you so much.